The petty rule. It all started with a letter taped to my front door, the kind that dripped with condescension and authority. The HOA claimed my small basketball hoop, a simple gift to my kids, violated community aesthetic guidelines. I remember the pit in my stomach as I read their demand. Remove it immediately or face daily fines. It wasn't just a hoop. It was the sound of my kids laughing, the echoes of neighborhood friends gathering, the heartbeat of our driveway. But to them, it was an eyesore. At first, I considered complying, but something in me refused to bow to such pettiness. If they wanted a fight over a basketball hoop, they were about to get one. And that's when the idea began to grow. The spark of defiance. As I stood in the driveway that night, staring at the hoop under the glow of the porch light, my frustration transformed into determination. Why should families be punished for harmless joy? Why should children be silenced because of a rule written by people who had forgotten what fun even looked like? The more I thought, the clearer my plan became. If the HOA hated my small hoop, then I wouldn't just keep it, I'd go bigger. Much bigger. Not a driveway toy, but a full basketball court. Something no one could ignore. What started as a petty restriction would become the centerpiece of the entire neighborhood. I wasn't just going to resist their order. I was going to make their rule backfire in the most spectacular way possible. And the first step was finding allies. Neighbors take sides. At first, I thought people would hesitate. After all, no one wanted to cross the HOA. But to my surprise, many neighbors shared the same resentment I did. Families whispered their frustrations, telling stories of absurd fines for lawn colors, mailbox designs, and even the way curtains looked from the street. The basketball hoop was only the latest symbol of control. When I mentioned building something larger, their eyes lit up. Parents imagined a place for their kids, teenagers dreamed of weekend games, and even older residents saw it as a spot for community events. Of course, not everyone was thrilled. The HOA board scoffed, and the president herself warned me I'd regret this rebellion. But her threats only fueled us. Plans for the court were already underway. Breaking ground. The first morning we began construction. The sound of shovels striking earth carried across the block. A few neighbors brought tools, others donated supplies, and kids stood by with excitement in their eyes. What had been a lonely act of defiance quickly turned into a neighborhood movement. Together, we cleared space behind my property, leveling the ground and marking lines where the court would stand. Every hour we worked, more residents joined in, bringing snacks, lending hands, or simply cheering. But the HOA didn't stay silent. Board members drove by, snapping pictures, scribbling notes, and muttering threats of lawsuits. Their disapproval grew louder each day, but so did our progress. By the end of the week, the foundation was ready, and the HOA was ready to strike back. The HOA strikes. The official letter arrived just as we poured the first layer of concrete. Bold red print across the top read "Cease and desist." They demanded immediate stoppage, citing violations of land use, noise ordinances, and even community harmony. But the letter didn't intimidate us anymore. In fact, it did the opposite. Neighbors gathered on my porch that night, passing the letter around like a bad joke. We knew they'd try everything: fines, legal threats, intimidation tactics. Yet, the spirit of the project had already taken root. It wasn't about one hoop anymore. It was about freedom, community, and proving that their control had limits. So instead of halting construction, we doubled our efforts. The court would rise no matter what they threw at us. The court takes shape. Week by week, the vision became reality. Smooth pavement stretched wide, painted lines crisp and perfect. A local contractor, tired of HOA harassment himself, donated hoops sturdy enough to withstand years of play. Families pitched in for benches, lights, and even a small scoreboard. What began as an act of rebellion now stood as a monument of unity. Kids practiced jump shots under the sunset, parents shared stories on the sidelines, and for the first time, the neighborhood felt alive with joy instead of fear. Yet, in the background, the HOA's fury simmered. Rumors spread of lawsuits, emergency meetings, and desperate attempts to shut us down. But by then, it was too late. The court was no longer just mine. It belonged to everyone, and we weren't giving it back. The breaking point. The HOA made their final move during the grand opening weekend. Flyers appeared on doors, warning residents that anyone using the illegal structure would face heavy fines and potential eviction. But on the day of the opening, the community showed its true colors. Dozens of families gathered at the court, laughter drowning out the board's empty threats. Music played, kids raced across the pavement, and neighbors who barely spoke before now bonded like lifelong friends. The HOA president herself appeared, arms crossed, face red with rage, but even she couldn't stop it. The crowd simply ignored her, choosing joy over control. Her authority crumbled in real time, and the court became a symbol of something untouchable. Victory beyond the court. In the months that followed, the court became the heart of the neighborhood. Teenagers organized tournaments, parents scheduled community events, and even local charities used it for fundraisers. The HOA tried to cling to power, filing complaints and sending more letters, but each attempt fizzled out. Too many people had tasted freedom, too many had found connection. The board's influence weakened, and one by one, members resigned under pressure. The petty rule that once targeted a single basketball hoop had backfired spectacularly, sparking unity they could never break. For me, it wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about watching my children grow up in a community that valued laughter over control, freedom over fear. And it all began with one petty letter taped to my door. This was just one of many wild neighborhood stories. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because here at QZ Stories, we bring you the craziest tales of revenge, justice, and neighborhood drama every week. Don't miss the next one. It might just be even more unbelievable.